I really want to begin with some overall thoughts on the league because this league just could not find a way to really help itself when you had a group of teams that were certainly in position to make a run to the college football playoff. You had some opportunities to go ahead and find a way to reach those goals. And the two top teams in the college football playoff rankings, Virginia and Louisville, lose. And it's for two different reasons. And both are tied to injury, truthfully, in my opinion. You've got Virginia, who loses Chandler Morris. Just feel for him. You wish that you could factor it in a little bit more, like maybe college basketball does or tries to, but it's just not going to be talked about by this committee. Chandler Morris plays that game. You got to believe that Virginia takes care of business against Wake Forest and just gets enough offense to win that game. Wake Forest has played really well on defense. They've been helped a little bit by their schedule. There's no doubt in my mind, at least. And I'm not trying to take away from them, but that is the reality of their schedule. It's also the reality of Virginia's schedule and why they're here in the first place. And Virginia goes out and you can't overcome that and falls 16-9 at home. And so all of a sudden, we've got a group, once again, of one-loss teams sitting there vying for this ACC championship race, and UVA just couldn't complete the comeback, couldn't tie the game, and you feel for the Hoos because they had everything in front of them. They could have won out and gotten to Charlotte and made it happen. Now we'll see what happens with Chandler Morris and kind of what's next for him and for Virginia. But they close with Duke, and then they get a bye, and then they face Virginia Tech. So they've got to go on the road, and I am just not sold that Virginia is going to beat Duke. I could tell you that. I'm probably going to ride with the Blue Devils this weekend unless Chandler Morris can play, and then I've got to really figure things out. But in that game, Wake Forest defense, they continue to step up despite, again, you can't really judge this one wholly because Chandler Morris did exit the game, but it was enough to get the win, and that's all that matters for this league right now, and that's why it is so disheartening that you're in positions as teams in this conference where unless you're Pitt, where you're going to play Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, and Miami, you really don't see too many opportunities to kind of close this out and finish safely into the top 10, although I think Georgia Tech could very well have that type of an opportunity as well with what they have left in front of them, especially with Pitt and Georgia on the schedule for them. They could play at Boston College this weekend, but Virginia goes into this one fully, I think, expecting to take care of business here, even though Wake Forest has played a lot of people hard, but you can't let teams hang around, and you've got to find ways to make plays in this time of year. So really unfortunate for Virginia. They had won 7 straight going into this one, but weren't able to get it done. And you look back on all the times they've played with fire over the course of this season, and it's kind of surprising that they've gotten to this point. But it's now even worse, when they played with fire and they needed a safety to beat Washington State a few weeks back. You kind of thought, okay, well, at least that would have been non-conference. Maybe that would have been a wake-up call. But Virginia only got 327 total yards. Wake Forest, their offense is abysmal, and they really just, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. And they just find a way in these low-scoring games to make plays that win. SMU learned that. And, man, SMU is doing its best to control what it can control right now. But, man, that loss is looming large for them last 2 weeks ago at Wake Forest. Otherwise, they're sitting atop the standings in this conference with just 2 losses on the year, which is not as bad, of course, as that really tough 3-loss territory. So Virginia losing that game really just turned over everything in this league as far as the conference championship race. But oh, by the way, this league wasn't done Saturday night as Cal shocked Louisville. This is one where going into the game you're not going to have Isaac Brown, but I still think we're seeing a big indictment on Miller Moss's ability to kind of carry this thing for the Cardinals. And he's a great kid and has played well enough to have them at 7-2 overall, now 4-2 in the ACC. But with Sagapitelli, that game-winning 3-yard touchdown pass in overtime, they were able to get the win 29-26. A really just tough deal for Louisville at home. So you have two home teams that are ranked in the top 15 go down for the ACC as well. So just not a good situation. You've got to give Cal a lot of credit. Sagapitelli, 30 of 47, 323 yards, 2 touchdowns. Miller Moss only threw 200 for 203 yards on the night. Had an interception, 5.3 yards per pass. Just not good enough. Just not what Jeff Brom and company need from him. And on a night when you had a run game with Kewan Brown running 14 times for 136 yards, you're running for 9.7 yards per carry with your starting running back, and you throw an interception and you just don't bring anything to the table, even with that high-powered receiving core. That's unfortunate for Louisville. And it's been my concern with Louisville watching them play is Miller Moss and when he has to do it all himself. That Miami game a couple weeks ago when they get the win and it, obviously catapulted them up into the first college football playoff ranking, up into the AP and all of these things. That game is a Jeff Brom special as far as being ready to make plays and get those wins against these top 10 teams. But Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions. It wasn't like a legacy game of Miller Moss. He was able to take care of the football well enough, but it wasn't like he went out there and really dominated. And he really hasn't shown what a lot of people nationally before this season thought they were going to see. I wasn't as high on Miller Moss. I think one thing that I like to do, you're in the media, you work all day, you either cover a noon kick or an 11 a.m. kick, and then you get probably wrapped up with your day by those evening games. So I usually get to watch a lot of the evening games, but nothing really better than the old school West Coast, Pac-12 after dark time slots. And so I watched a good bit of Miller Moss last year. I just wasn't high on what he was going to bring to Louisville, and said that throughout the offseason. And so he's not a bad player. He is just not Tyler Shook. Tyler Shook with this Louisville team would probably have them undefeated, is my guess. So it's a tough loss for Louisville. It's really tough for the conference because this is a team in Louisville that has so much talent. Even with Isaac Brown being down, you saw what Kewan Brown could do. Duke Watson, kind of helped a little bit there. But Colin Lacey, Chris Bell, those guys are really, really explosive players. But they also need a little bit more help from their quarterback to make them explosive. The defense, I thought, played well enough. 23 points in regulation for Cal. It's a pretty good night for a defense, regardless of what you thought of Cal going in. They're now 3-3 in league play. They're 6-4. They're going bowling. The ACC could have a bunch of teams playing for bowls the way things are going as far as them beating up on each other. So this was a really gritty win for Cal. They deserve a ton of credit. Kendrick Raphael, 19 carries, 83 yards, touchdown, solid day for him. Jacob DeJesus, 16 receptions, 158 yards, a touchdown, including the game winner. And they were just able to find a way. And that's what it's all about this time of year. They win the turnover battle 1-0, and that helps too. So Cal, to close out their regular season, they have a slate of Stanford and then SMU. I think they are on a bye now. Yes, they are. And then they host SMU to close things out. So they don't leave the West Coast for the rest of the year. And then Louisville gets to head over to or host Clemson this weekend in a night game on ESPN, and then heads to SMU and then hosts Kentucky. So a tough slate of rosters as far as what Louisville has to face, and that's concerning for their end of the season. If Louisville was able to get past Cal, I felt like that would kind of springboard them into maybe okay, you can get past Clemson because everybody kind of seems to these days, out unless your name's Florida State. More on that in a moment. But then you get into SMU and you're thinking, okay, that one could be pretty competitive. It was competitive last year. SMU has kind of been up and down a little bit, but now you're looking at what's unfolded over the last 2 weeks, and you're thinking, okay, SMU's playing at a higher level as of late. Louisville now licking its wounds after a loss, trying to figure out what life without Isaac Brown is going to be like, and it's hard to see a picture perfect finish to this season. It's there, but it still might not get them to Charlotte. And so that's where you almost have to start. If you're an ACC fan, you have to start saying, okay, well, you need SMU to win. You need Louisville to just beat Clemson. You need Louisville to beat Kentucky, but you need an SMU to win, take care of business, keep in that race of being, an ACC championship team that can go and play. As far as just kind of keeping it clean, I think as teams kind of beat each other up, it's only going to get uglier for the ACC and just not in a good situation overall.